everyone. Today we have a new guest on our show, Mark Montgomery. Yes,
Yes, sir. I'm
I
Mark
would like
Montgomery.
to ask you to introduce yourself a little bit. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm Mark Montgomery. I'm a retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral. I'm also a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and I've been running the U.S. Cyberspace Solarium Commission for the last 3 years as a federal commission, and then most recently as a non-government organization working to improve our cybersecurity policy and strategy.
I often listen to civilian versus military experts, and it seems to me like the civilians are much more softer. They underestimate the danger from the CCP and PLA. And it's like maybe it's both. Maybe they don't have the incentive to talk about this, to explain away other things, or is it because they don't understand the issues? Could you please tell me your point of view and also like maybe the broader view of the military? Is it really so? Is the situation that good, or is it maybe a bit more serious?
So, I mean, that's a great question because you're right. For the last 15 years, the United States has had an inconsistent position on China. Whether you look at U.S. businessmen, diplomats, senior policy people, or the military, I think it's because you have to look at China as a total risk, and that risk is an evaluation of how much threat their military poses to you, particularly their navy, but all of their military, and then what's the likelihood of them using it. So that capability times likelihood, credibility of usage, that's what gives you your risk. And I think if you ask the US military, we would have really focused on the capability and kind of assumed we have to plan for the worst case that they might use it. So for the last 15 years, if you ask senior military officers, we've been concerned about China, and that concern has got increasingly greater as the capability has gotten better. And China really is on a 25-year path since about 1998, five-year plans that have been executed very aggressively to build their air and maritime power to keep the United States out of the first island chain. So the military always looked through the lens of capability and then assumed intent. I think politicians and particularly businessmen kind of wished away the intent. They acknowledged the capability was getting better, but they said, well, maybe there's a future where China is our partner. There's a future where China enters the world order as a Western, transparent, rules based country. I think that's what's changed most dramatically over the last 5 years, is that fewer and fewer people believe that, and really there's only a small cadre of businessmen who really have existing or planned strong investments in China. And really what they're doing is expressing a hope or an aspiration that the Chinese Communist Party does not have ill intent in the face of what are increasingly signs that they do in Tibet, in against the Uyghurs, in Hong Kong, Macau, everywhere they've operated. One would begin to believe the intent is serious to do ill will, and you combine it with a serious capability, and you have a lot of risk.
And also, I think they have different incentives. They might have a visa rejected. They might get an invitation to a conference. They teach courses. They have Chinese students coming in. So they have financial incentives. And on the other hand, if it really, if there is a conflict, it's not them who would be fighting and dying, but it's the military. And also, that's what I see when I listen to those China hands. It's so easy to explain away, giving away Taiwan. Yeah, because they live in Europe and the US, they go to China, but they don't live in Taiwan, most of them, like I do. So it's easy to talk about sacrificing Taiwan because it costs them nothing.
Or Japan, or Singapore, or
Exactly.
Philippines. If you live
Yes.
in Japan, Singapore, Philippines, Australia, Taiwan's the bellwether.
Yes.
Why would you continue on a policy of relying on the United States and the European allies as your security and economic partners of choice if the U.S. were to abandon Taiwan? I mean, you would have to say who's next, and that we
Yes.
all know the Chinese intent
Yes. Yes.
is more.
Yeah.
You
It's
remind me of
Japan, it's
something else.
Philippines. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
everything.
it's correct. You remind me of something else too. I don't want to attribute negative uh, negative insights to everyone. Like I used to complain in 2015 and 2016 when the Chinese were doing the island building campaign in the South China Sea. It was so frustrating that we couldn't get Greenpeace and other environmental organizations to speak up about it. This was the most dramatic damage to international seas ever done by a state. It really is a phenomenal amount of damage that's been done throughout the South China Sea to the fisheries, to the maritime infrastructure of that sea. And you know, if the United States Navy hits a small reef, does a tiny bit of damage, there'll be 300-400 articles with Greenpeace comments. Everybody, and I accept that. That is, we should be held accountable. And yet the Chinese were not being held accountable by environmental organizations. And finally, when you get them in private and say, what's up? They're like, well, we have very important issues we're working in China, you know, with Three Gorges Dam and other things, and the issue of smog, and we're working them, and we have a lot of host nation employees, in other words, Chinese nationals. And if we're seen as criticizing them in the South China Sea, they'll punish our host nation nationals. And my answer to that is, at some point you have to understand, you know, working with the devil, you know, has its,
Yes.
has its bill to pay, and that bill to pay is their silence, and effectively their cooperation through silence on what happened in the South China Sea. It's disgraceful. Yet at some level, I can understand they found themselves in a position where they're protecting their host nation people. They just have to be smarter about the deal, you know, the paradigm they set for themselves. And I think businessmen are in a bit of the same pickle now in China.
And as you mentioned, the narrative is changing in the last 5 years. I see those China hands, they are a bit quieter. They try to talk more about Taiwan. They kind of shift because they see it's really more and more difficult to defend or to hype the CCP as they have before.
No, that's a very true statement. I've seen a lot, and some of them have come forward and said, I was wrong. I was someone who believed in engagement. I was someone who believed that we could change China through integrate economic integration, through cultural integration, and I now understand I'm wrong. There's been a lot of that. Orville Snell, others, very smart people who otherwise, you know, well intentioned, were trying to build a U.S. Future for U.S. and China, for which the Chinese Communist Party was not committed, but did do a lot of disinformation to allow these people to have some belief in what they thought. But over the last 5 years, I think that's come to an end in the United States.
Okay, so the next topic would be we just mentioned it a little bit. What's the attitude on the ground in the region? Because I can imagine that China's neighbors are scared and they know Taiwan would be the first domino to fall. So they don't talk about this too much, but you can see, the four countries now visiting the NATO summit. So I think there is also changes on the way. But what's, let's say, the attitude on the ground when they talk to you privately? Are they in
So I
panic
think,
mode?
yeah, I think there's significant concern.
Yes.
And the United States concerns them because of our inconsistent performance in international affairs over the last 5 years through the last three presidents. I think President Obama was weak on at moments. I
Yes.
think when
Yes.
President Xi spoke to him in the Rose Garden, and he said, "Oh, we're not going
Yes.
to militarize the South China Sea.
Yes.
We're going to
Very
stop
much
this
so.
intellectual property theft and cyber malicious cyber activity." And Obama took him at his word. It was deception and a lie, and the president it influenced how the President Obama acted for a year and a half. That was an error. I don't believe President Trump. He approached our allies as a transactional relationship, which is not how you work with allies and partners in general. Although he did focus, he is one of the. He did make a significant effort to put pressure on China and pressurize the U.S. Chinese
Yes.
relations. So there's some good things in there, but broadly, how he treated allies and partners was not appropriate. And then President Biden's first moves in Afghanistan and other places, but particularly Afghanistan, did not show a credible, reliable partner. And I think that's the nicest way to describe President Trump and President Biden's decision making about a withdrawal from Afghanistan, and certainly President Biden's execution of it. So those things kind of put put our allies and partners on their back heels. I do think they're seeing a United States, though, that is making the right defense investments, that is, starting to reach out. I think President Biden's doing a better job of reaching out to allies and partners now. And I think that's important. And look, we had some great leaders in the region. President Tsai, Prime Minister Abe, a succession of the last three Australian prime ministers have all properly recognized the threat. I think Singapore's become tougher on this as well. So there's countries in the region that are starting to recognize the threat from China. So if you had asked me 5 years ago when I was at PACOM, the lead war planner, I would have said, as the U.S. plans for this, all we can rely on is that Japan will probably allow us to fly missions. We'll have access to Japanese bases in a Taiwan scenario. If you ask me today, I would say Taiwan, Australia, potentially Singapore, eventually, I think the Philippines will give us access to bases. And more so, Japan and Australia will fight alongside us with the Taiwan.
That's exactly
So
that's
these
I
are
think
big differences.
the biggest story of the last few years, that Japan and Australia are taking it more seriously. You have
That's
Shinzo
right.
Abe, who was a friend of Taiwan. You have the former Prime Minister of Australia who's been to Taiwan and supported it. And both made the connections between the security of their countries and Taiwan.
Certainly, if my old boss, Senator McCain, were to look at where we sit today, he would say he would be happy with the evolution since he passed away 3 years ago. The evolution of the U.S. Taiwan, of the security relationship, not of how China has grown, but he knew that was going to happen. What he would be impressed with would be Japan and Australia's response, and would be the United States' effort to take advantage of that. So I think that there's things to be pleased with. Now, look, there's a lot of work to do outside of the security arrangements. We have failed to get the bilateral treaty we need to have with Taiwan, and eventually, after that, introduce Taiwan into regional economic treaties. But we need a bilateral trade treaty between the United States and Taiwan to anchor the economic part of our security relationship.
The Chinese Navy and then the Air Force is so aggressive towards foreign assets. They train lasers at them and they harass the foreign assets, airplanes and boats. Why is there no reaction? Like, is everybody takes it? Like, military is not supposed to be that friendly, but still they take it.
So I think they're careful around us. They do things. They test us. They certainly test. China has this theory: we're a big country, you're a big country. They tend to treat us one way. We're a big country. China's a big country. Japan's a medium-sized country. Australia's a medium-sized country. They can treat them in a less deferent, in a more aggressive manner. And certainly Taiwan, they say we're a big country and you're part of us, so they can treat them any way they want. So they definitely have a scale of treatment. They have on occasion mistreated us. I don't think if you remember the P3 incident from
Yes,
2001, that I don't believe that was intentional, but the harassment was intentional. The
yes.
actually bringing it down was unintentional. But to my mind, these that aggression, it's also a sign of immaturity. One of the things where I'm comfortable, our military is mature. We have a lot of combat experienced leaders. We don't overreact. We have a lot of people with, by the time I retired after 32 years, I'd been at sea 19 years on ships, and that's just a much different dynamic than a Chinese military, what my Chinese counterparts would have had. The number of days, that gives you a sense of confidence and maturity that allows you to not overreact to these Chinese insults.
Yes, but they might take your maturity for weakness because they are maybe even, encouraged to show this kind of bravado, and they think, yeah, maybe that's skills. It's not stupidity.
Yeah, I hope not. Certainly, I it's hard for me to know how Chinese view things exactly. I will tell you, if they have even rudimentarily intelligence capabilities, they know we have a highly capable and operationally experienced military. So they would be foolish to assume our maturity and our patience is weakness and lack of capability. But you're right, though. There is this more aggressive Chinese capability. I will tell you though, and I'll try to pre-guess your next question. I worry less about I am confident in our military capability against China still. I know Admiral Davidson, when he was the Indo-Pacific commander, said, "Oh, I'm really worried by 2027, China will have the capability of, of imposing their will on Taiwan." I would put a significant qualifier on that. That's if the United States, Japan, and Australia don't do something about it. And we have 5 years to do something about it. And I think all four of our countries are making the right kind of investments that can move that timeline to the right, to 2032, 2037. And suddenly President Xi doesn't have a window in his lifetime for closing that gap. So I'm happy to talk about some of the naval issues, but I will tell you, I reckon, my son's in the Navy.
Oh,
I would worry for him if he was on a ship in the Pacific in a war. On the other hand, I would be confident that he's equipped with good capability and that we have the capacities we need to eventually defeat the Chinese. And I can talk in some specifics about that.
okay. So on continuing this topic, yeah, what you said sounds very positive, but at the same time, the Chinese Navy is building more and more ships, aircraft carriers, more and more assets. And what does NATO do? They invite new countries. They have statements. They kind of hold back when they face this aggression. So my question would be, which kind of bold steps, surprises could the West now undertake? Maybe, like something really what the Chinese wouldn't even think about, like a port call for an US aircraft carrier in Kaohsiung. Maybe, shooting down such an aggressive plane, or, anything that would take the Chinese by surprise and they would have to rethink their behavior.
So I'll give you a bunch of ideas. First, I want to, again, caveat my confidence is postulated only on continued aggressive investments by Australia, Japan, Taiwan, and the United States, as we've seen over the last 2 to 3 years. If you go back 5 or 6 years, there weren't the right types of investments. So this really is about continuing the track that we're on. And let me give you some good examples. Here's the things I would do to send strong signals to China. First, the first thing is we always have to remember Taiwan has to be able to have what I would say in our terminology, our national defense strategy, Taiwan has to have contact forces. That means they have to have the forces on scene right away to mitigate and slow down the Communist Party's maneuvers, right? The Chinese Communist Party's maneuvers. And so what that means is they have to have the right forces. And we've actually, you can see Taiwan begin to purchase those. They're not M1A1 tanks. That's not a good purchase. They are Harpoon missile systems. And if you weren't sure about that, I think the Russia-Ukraine thing, you're seeing the Black Sea Fleet standing off 100 kilometers, basically the width of the Taiwan Straits. And what drives me crazy is, so we agreed to sell those to Taiwan 2 years ago now. And the estimated delivery date is 2025, 2026. These are for land-based Harpoon missiles. And the reason was, well, we don't have anything like this. Well, look at in Ukraine, we didn't have anything like this. And the Danish delivered one in 2 weeks, and the US are delivering a couple systems in 2 months. Why? Because we're doing something called MacGyvering it. And if you remember, there's an old American TV
Yes,
show,
yes, I
MacGyver,
know.
right? The Taiwan audience understands that. That's critical. We MacGyvered it. We got to MacGyver these harpoons. We need to MacGyver about 40 harpoon launchers over to Taiwan and 100 missiles to go on them. And then you can build the nice ones that Boeing likes to build, another 60. Boeing did a great job for Ukraine. They can do a greater job for Taiwan. If I'm a Chinese naval, amphibious ship captain, I'm extremely nervous if two Harpoon missiles are fired at my ship. I better make sure I know where my life preserver is because I'm going to go down. And so that's the kind of thing. So first of all, we have to sell them the right. We have to provide Taiwan with access to the right weapons. There's other weapons in that package called SLAM ER, which is a air launched. There's air and ground launched other missiles. I want to get all those over there. And we want, when we say Taiwan's a porcupine, it's not javelin. Javelins would be nice, but it's about these long range missiles that reach out and prevent Chinese aircraft and ships from getting close to Taiwan when a war starts. And they have to be mobile and movable because the Chinese will be firing everything they have at Taiwan if we really get to this position. To help afford that, Taiwan has increased its defense spending as a percentage of GDP. I think with the F-16 purchases and the extra 9 billion that was put in that they announced this spring, I think they're up around 2.3, 2.4, 2.5%. The Taiwan Defense
Yes.
Ministry of Defense is to do a good. They need to do a much better job of explaining what that is, because some European sites still say just under 2%. That hits American senators right in the gut, right in the gut. They need to get the right number out. It's about 2.4%. On top of that, needs to keep increasing, probably close to 3%. That's where beleaguered democracies, countries like Ukraine, Taiwan, Israel, that's South Korea, countries that are under threat from authoritarian regimes, that's what they need to be spending, 3% or more. But the United States can help. We should give about $2 to $3 billion a year in security assistance to help get these weapons. So the sign to the Chinese is Ministry of Defense, Taiwan defense spending goes up. The U.S. adds security assistance. We buy the right systems. That's a strong signal. And let me tell you who's going to see that signal clearer with 2020 vision: the Chinese Communist Party. That's the strongest signal. I'll give you one more. I'm not a big fan. Look, you mentioned a port visit. I know everyone likes that. That's ceremonial. Here's the real trick: an aircraft carrier goes off the east coast of Taiwan and begins a 2 week long exercise between between Taiwan Air Force and Navy and U.S. Naval Air and U.S. Air Force coming down from Kadena, from Japan, flying a complex exercise. The first year is kind of like high school level. The second year is bachelor's degree. The third year is master's degree. The fourth year is your doctorate. The Chinese will see this each year and realize right now, when the Taiwan and U.S. military fight, if we get in a fight with China tomorrow, it would be 2 + 2 = 3. In other words, we would be less effective together than we
Yes.
were independently. I call it deconflicted warfare. That means you go left, I go right. Don't you dare go right, because I'm going to be right, shooting everything I see. That's what I worry about my son out here, right? The next level is a coordinated. That means you go left at 11 o'clock, I'll go right at 11:30, and I'll be much more effective because you went right before me. And then later it's integrated. That means you go left at 11:30, I'll go right and sweep in and support you. And then finally they're synchronized, like how we fight with the Australians. And they're about the only country in the world, maybe the UK and Australia. But we need to bring Taiwan up. Japan's moving up that track. And the Chinese see it. It makes the East
Yes.
China Sea, the Senkakus, much harder for the Chinese. We do the same with Taiwan. So, first thing, as I said, get the weapons right, get the spending right. Second thing, exercise aggressively together. Hey, look, if there's a port visit involved, great, but I wouldn't worry about that. It's like going to RIMPAC. Whenever they're like, oh, Taiwan has to go to RIMPAC. RIMPAC is the lowest common denominator exercise. It's only political value. There's no military value. So if you go for politics. The military value is that bilateral exercise between the US and Taiwan. Then maybe in year 3, in come the Japanese. And year 4, in come the Australians. Now you're doing multilateral, high level exercises. If I'm a Chinese fleet commander, my life just got a lot worse when I see that happen over a 3 or 4 year period. So to me, those are the two big things.
Yeah, but that takes a lot of commitment because that's really puts Chinese on high alert.
Well, you had me shooting down a plane about 7 minutes ago.
Yes.
This is less alert than that. These are things, this is about deterrence. This is, when the president says, hey, deterrence failed in Ukraine, it did. It had failed in Ukraine because we gave Ukraine about $400 million worth of equipment between January of 2021 and November of 2021. We gave another 3 or 400 million right before the war started. We needed to give them 2 or 3 billion dollars worth of gear in 2021. That might have deterred Gerasimov and Putin. Those are, now we're having to give 10, 20, 30, 40 billion. I
Yes.
mean, this is the cost of failed deterrence, right? When you fail at deterrence and you have to do it through resilience, it gets really expensive. Expensive for the United States and Europe, but even more expensive for the Ukrainian people. So, yes, I am talking about things that cost money. Now, look, those exercises are not expensive. We're going to do those exercises anyway. We're going to do them with Japan anyway. We're going to do them with Australia anyway. Taiwan's a hop, skip, and a jump from the U.S. ports and airfields in Japan. It's an easy day. We can do those exercises. It takes political will.
Yes, exactly.
And so that, to me, the first one, the spending money, that's political will too. Taiwan will get there. The United States will have a security assistance program. I feel both of those will happen. And we'll MacGyver them harpoons. I'll bet by 2024 at the latest, maybe 2023. Because Boeing wants to make, Boeing's a good company. They know what they're doing and they want to make money, right? That's magic. I think we'll start to figure this out, and that'll be a strong signal.